we've seen this sort of global hint towards inflation concerns. Yesterday it was the ECB, last week it was Japan, today the RBA talking a little about inflation. A previous guest on this programme was not worried much about certainly US inflation. How concerned are you around the inflation theme and the higher yield theme that seems to be building?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the higher yield theme, I think, is something to take seriously. This is actually pretty normal behavior for markets. So what you see is that the market looks for the hiking cycle that's coming next, well before the end of the cutting cycle. And that becomes easier because there's a shorter lag between the cutting cycle and the hiking cycle that comes next when there isn't this great economic damage, which we haven't seen. And you're also talking about inflationary pressures, particularly in the US. So I think there's different concerns everywhere, but I think certainly in the U.S. you need to be worried about inflation heading into next year. And so you're looking for the hiking cycle before you get to the end of the cutting cycle. And even when you have that firmed up and when you expect the first hike, yields start to rise from 9 months before that. So I think certainly heading into next year, as you're talking about inflation potentially being higher in the U.S., maybe you get some kind of fiscal bill heading into midterms, you need to be talking about it. And you'll likely see that continued pressure upward on yields.
Is the Fed going to give us a clue today as to when that happens? Like, I'm wondering what the Fed can say today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what Powell... He sits down today and he goes, right, OK, guys, we have no data. So what decisions are we going to be making here? So is this a redundant meeting from the FOMC? I know everybody's very excited about whether it's hawkish or dovish or whatever, but I'm wondering how useful it is in terms of what it's going to tell us about what comes next.
I think it's useful because we're now moving to a type of FOMC where you're looking at what the individual members think and care about. So the meeting tomorrow, I think certainly because pricing is skewed so dovishly, you're ended up on the hawkish side. And what you're looking for there is how many dissenters are there. You're likely having one dovish dissent, but I would expect at least 2 hawkish dissents for a hold. Right. And you're also looking at the dot. So next year, is there still only 1 cut expected? So that gives you some kind of guidance on what to think. But I think certainly what you've also seen from the last 5 FOMCs is that Powell has corrected the market hawkishly in the press conference. So what you tend to see is the dollar sells off because the market wants to be dovish on the immediate reaction, but that ends up higher 3-6 hours later because Powell's more hawkish.
How do you think, Skylar, people should think about dissent at the Fed? We talked about this, quite a bit of a newer phenomenon. Other central banks, there's more history of dissent. Many in the market don't want to see a lack of independence at the Fed. So how should we think about dissent?
I think it's certainly a positive signal for independence because it means that you're not all coalescing around a Fed chair that maybe isn't as independent as you would hope for. And I think it means that you have more volatility next year, right? Because every meeting, people are taking individual views on how that economic data is coming in. And it means that you have more likelihood that you'll get kind of pinged around. And we certainly see it in the Bank of England that a decision comes and what the dissenters are does impact how hawkishly it's taken, and you get more volatility as a result of that.
Bank of England is just becoming impossible to call at the moment. You do wonder whether the Fed's going to end up in a similar situation very, very soon. Skylar, nice to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Bloomberg's Markets Live, Skylar, Montgomery, Koning. And remember, you can get all of the analysis, and it's going to be a big day today into tomorrow. MLIV Go on your Bloomberg terminal.